Alright, thank you everyone for coming along. It is great to see such a fantastic turnout. I'd like to just start with some housekeeping and then some introductions if I could. So my name's Annette Brosnan. I'm a Napier City Councillor for the Onikawa Tamatea Ward. And I'd like to introduce my co-MCs this evening, Councillor Keith Price and Councillor Graham Taylor. So in terms of housekeeping, if there is an emergency, drop cover hold. We have two exits, one over here, or three exits, sorry, one out here, one on the back and through the door you came in, and we'll assemble in the car park. Toilets are out the door on the right, and just for administrative purposes, we are recording the meeting this evening. So, I'd also, just before we get started, like to introduce, we've got a panel of experts here and independents that are going to help with the questions. It's a public meeting, and the intention of tonight is that we would have a lot of time for public input into questions and scrutiny of the information that we have on board that has led us to the decisions that we've made regarding the Aquatic Centre. So I'd like to introduce, we have Jamie Dallett from Sport NZ.
Hello.
We have Grant Watkins from RLB, he's a quantity survey.
Good evening.
We have Graham Prophet from PDP.
Hi.
And we also have two staff available to answer questions as well. We have Mark Lestiot.
Hello.
And Glenn Lucas, sorry.
Hi.
Thank you. All right, so moving forward, we have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll run through. This is the agenda for this evening. We'll go through a bit of a purpose of today, and then councillors will speak on the journey we've been into our decision making. I'll speak on the vision, and then we'll do some looking ahead, what the plan is, and then we have some details from our consultants on the constraints at Onikawa and some of the frequently asked questions that we know may be circulating as well. So I'll move forward. So the purpose of tonight is to provide you with information and to answer any questions around the new pool development. So as I said earlier, this really is a public meeting, and what I intend for the public, being yourselves, any questions that you have to be answered this evening, and for you to feel like you've had a really good input into this meeting. I'd like to introduce Graham Taylor, as I did earlier. Graham's going to speak to you on the journey we've been through so far.
I know it's a very formal evening, but looking at some of the people in the crowd, they might even recognise one of these. And I found it in my garage the other day and realised that when I was 9 years old, I swam 880 yards in the Mahora Primary School pool, which was 25 yards long. But the journey probably started in 2013. I know up on the board it talks about 2014, but in 2013 or around there was an effort to develop a regional aquatic strategy where we tried to partner, or Napier City tried to partner with Hastings and develop a regional strategy. There was some reluctance for that to happen, and so as a result in 2014 the Napier Aquatic strategy was started. So like anything in local government, nothing gets done very quickly, and so this journey has been long and started probably 4 years ago. One of the other main dates to think of is that 2015 date where business case, that's right, isn't it?
Strategy.
That one? Business case options. Well, that was January 15, the strategy was adopted, that's right. One of the other complicating matters that occurred was that unfortunately the development or the demise of the Taradale pool or the Greendale pool was accelerated, and as a result that put a bit of extra pressure on Napier City Council to develop the aquatic strategy and where to from there, because that we had expected that the Taradale pool was going to be able to stay open a bit longer, but that was brought forward, and as many of you know and probably attended meetings out at Taradale Primary about that. So the Taradale feasibility demand assessment was done in April 2016. We carried on through, and there's been a number of reports since then, and those have included in the 2017 to 18 period the business case options for expansion, the aquatic community engagement report received in October 17, and then further project costs and scheduling for the 50 metre option were done in September 2017. There are other important dates there, but probably one of the most important that we need to look at the present time is that the long-term plan for 2018 to 28 has been adopted in June of this year. And in that, the adoption of that long-term plan, this is the moving of the pool to Princeton Drive was adopted as the proposal. So at the present time, that's the direction in which we're moving, and the reason that we're here is to answer questions in relation to that. So basically that covers off the journey, and that's all up there if you need any further questions later on those dates.
Thank you, Graham. So when we were sitting down as a council back in 2014, we set a vision for what we wanted aquatics to look like in Napier. So people may be familiar with something called an NRB survey, which is the survey of residents done annually. I think the survey is done, and that shows that aquatics in Napier are our lowest satisfaction rating. So council saw it as a priority at the time to really improve our aquatic offering to our community. So we went through and set a vision for what we wanted those aquatics facilities to look like going forward. So the vision that council set, and I have the notes from our meeting, was how do we increase the number of people participating in both aquatic sport and recreation? How do we increase community satisfaction with our aquatic facilities? How do we increase water safety and confidence? Achieve the right balance between sport development, leisure, play, water confidence, health and fitness? Get value for money for our ratepayers, and ensure all Napier residents benefit from our new facility. So that was the vision that councillors set when setting out, as Graham pointed out, on that journey to come to a new aquatic offering. So looking ahead, Councillor Keith Price is going to speak to moving forward.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to say anything anyway that will affect them. The new site is, population-wise, there's a similar base of population around the new site to what there is at Onikawa. The growth of housing, parklands, Mission Estate, which is to go ahead, is a big growth area in this area out here. We look at it as a sports hub, and it's close to Park Island, which is a recognised sports hub. But we have 7 hectares around where the pool goes, and there's room for growth for other activities to take place. And I liken it to if you look at the sports park, where 5 years ago there was an athletics track, now 5 years later there's no room left on it. So we've got to future-proof for future growth. We're a tourist town, and we want to create activities for our own people as well as tourists. So also Mark Aspen from Sporthawks Bay has supported this move and the build of the pool that we're looking at. There's other things that we've done, what I call state of art, when you look at the adventure playground that's gone into Anderson Park. I mean, that's done to the best you can do in New Zealand, and someone else will probably try and challenge us and do something better, and marine parade has been done to a high value. So we do things properly, and this pool is doing exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. I thought it'd be valuable next for Glenn on our staff to run you through the details of the proposal that we have in front of you. And then we will move forward to a bit of discussion around Onikawa site, and then open it up to those questions, and we'll get there. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette. Everybody hear me okay? I'm Glenn Lucas. I'm the Manager of Sports and Recreation at Napier City Council, and aquatics sort of comes under my remit. I'd just like to say what Annette has said already, that just welcome you along. Thanks for giving us some of your valuable time today. Today is mainly about you guys, so we'll go through a really brief presentation as to what the proposal is, but it's mainly about you guys and an opportunity to ask us questions. So we'll be as quickly as possible, okay?
We have some seats up the front for people.
Oh, okay. And Annette's just said we've got a few spare seats up the front there for you guys that have just come in, so there should be enough seats for the lap. So really briefly, the proposal that's in the LTP, that's been signed off in the LTP, is broadly based on the QE2 Taiora facility, which is open, I think, in May in Christchurch. So looking at the business case that we produced, the option that we were looking at, QE2 just happened to completely match most of the features that we were looking for. So the idea is to use the QE2 Taiora as specifications for our process, for our tender process for going out. So it's not as simple as picking up a QE2, duplicating it and whacking it in Redevelopment Drive. So the features of the pool include a really big 32-seat spa pool. There's dry side stuff, which includes a cafe, includes a gym and community rooms. There's really impressive leisure water, which includes zero-depth water play areas. We've got 2 hydro slides, one is which you take a raft and you go down on a raft. One of them is just by yourself or in your dogs, if you're in your dogs. We've got a learned swim pool, which is 7 lanes, I believe, so we need to extend that a little bit to suit our specific needs to cope for our swim school and for growth for our particular swim school. We have also got, I think that's actually covered everything. Really importantly, one of the things I'm most excited about is the hydrotherapy pool. As you know, we've got an ageing population, and moving forward, our projections showing that there's a lot more older people, and one of the ways of catering for our increasingly ageing community is providing really good water, which is at 34 degrees, 36 degrees for therapy, for rehabilitation, for people with injuries, for people with disabilities, and for people with mobility issues. So we don't have that at the moment, and I think Hawke's Bay doesn't really have that. So to me, it's a really key feature of the proposal moving forward.
And Glenn, if I could just bounce off that, one of the things that we've heard as council and the information we've had from various experts is that communities moving forward, what they want most in aquatic space is flexibility. So that's flexibility of temperature. So your hydrotherapy is obviously a few degrees warmer than your 25 by 25. Same with the kids area, can be warmer. And one of the exciting features about the 25 by 25 metre pool is that it has a movable floor on it as well. So if, for instance, you had school swimming sports and needed sort of a smaller, a different depth, or conversely, if you're playing a sport in there and need a bigger depth, you can adjust that very simply.
Thanks, Annette. Thanks for that. So really briefly, the site is Redevelopment Drive, the corner of Redevelopment Drive and Napier Drive. I'm sure you're relatively familiar with it, but if you picture the airport, Mitre 10 Mega, the big roundabout that's at Redevelopment Drive, it's on the parkland side of that roundabout. So there's a big site which is council owned, which used to be the home of an old racetrack, I believe. So that's where it's intended to be situated. So here we have a comparison of actually what we've got at the moment with the proposal. So I think it's intended to show how much more water space it provides. So the lap pool for the proposed aquatic centre has 10 lanes. The lanes are 2.5 metres wide, which are a good, half a metre or so wider than what we've currently got. There is also a learned swim pool, as I said before, with 7 lanes. The depth of the learned swim pool is intended to be similar to our old pool at the moment. So if the lane pool is full with whatever activity is going on, then the learned swim pool can cope with the needs of, say, our health and fitness swimmers, our lane swimmers. They can go into there. So we have a total of 17 lanes of formal swimming, so swimming up and down, compared to the current 11 lanes. We've also got, as I mentioned before, a hydrotherapy pool, which I think is 20 metres by 12 or something like that. We've got huge leisure space, which is amazing. It came through our consultation very strongly that a hang of a lot of our community are really interested in spending quality time with kids and aquatic recreation, aquatic leisure. and there's also a really significant zero depth water play area. So things like big buckets that fill up with water and fall down on the kids. So zero depth, you can't drown in it. All sorts of squeaky toys and that sort of thing, which is really fun for our little kids. The next slide is for Mark Pested, who's our manager of design and projects, to take you through.
Thanks, Glenn. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. My name is Mark Pested, born in Napier. Actually grew up in Onikawa on Marty Road, number 8 Marty Road. My parents built that place. So went to school in the community. Graduated from Auckland University when I had to leave home with a bachelor's in engineering, and then went on and did a doctorate in geotechnical engineering. For some weird reason, that got me into actually investigating contaminated sites, and I ended up spending 22 years in the United States working on different size programs, everything from landfills and gas stations through to chemical warfare agent disposal sites and munition disposal sites. So I've seen what can be done out there, and I've got some experience in how to do it properly. But my current role is 4 years ago I came home to be close to my parents who still live here, and 2 years ago I got the opportunity to get back to my community by working for Napier City Council and serving youth. The start of that journey was in 2017 pretty much, and one of my first big projects I was tasked with was to look at this particular project that had just gone through community consultation and had come out at the end of that with a strong community recommendation for one of the options. I think it was option 3. That meant that we now had a clear decision of what the community wanted in terms of scale and features and, do it once, do it right type thing. And I was tasked with, okay, we've got the LTP coming up soon, we better make sure we've got these numbers right.
Mark,
Yep.
just to clarify for people, option 3 was to build a 50-metre pool on the Onikawa site. So that's what Mark was setting out to assess.
Yes, that's correct. So that was the scope at that time. We engaged two companies, TBIG, who was represented here today, as well as RLB, our quantity surveyors, to actually support us in this, because they have access to a huge information resource regarding the costs of building similar facilities elsewhere in New Zealand. And that database was used to actually validate some of the cost assumptions that had been previously used to give us ballpark numbers for what we were proposing to do. Now, we also wanted to make sure that we could afford to actually build this facility over the 3 years of the LTP process, so we needed to actually understand what was going to happen when and how much it was going to cost. Part of a good due diligence in that process is to make sure you truly understand what your risks are, what you know and what you don't know about what you're about to do. And so part of the tasking that we asked RLB and TBIG to do was, please develop a risk register for us, which is a list of the things that could possibly go wrong and what we could do about it. Okay, at every stage, and that included going out and doing the planning, making sure that we had sufficient contract resources in the community that could actually facilitate the build, looking at competition in the market, looking at the potential cost escalation that might occur over the life cycle of the project, because nobody likes getting a 10% extra bill at the end of a project. So we analysed all of those things. We also, as part of that, looked at what we knew and didn't know about the Onikawa site. Because remember, we're still putting, at this stage, this facility at Onikawa. So we identified a couple of key constraints that made us pause and ask the question, are we doing the right thing? And principle amongst those is that you're putting a building on a landfill and an old demolished pool in an earthquake zone. What are the risks associated with doing that? And so we just said, yep, those are the risks. There are ways of mitigating them. We can excavate, we can pile through the things, we can control the hazards. We've got very good techniques that have been developed over tens of years for managing just these types of site conditions. But none of those things come at zero cost. Okay. As part of the risk assessment and understanding what the costs were, we also endeavoured to quantify what those extra costs were. So when we're looking at landfills, for example, if we had to dig up the landfill debris there, which is mildly contaminated, it's certainly what I'd call very low risk for certain exposure pathways. But as soon as you start to disturb that material and you dig up a lot of it and try and haul it away, that changes the risk of that activity. So we have to be very cautious about, are we doing the right thing? Is there another option rather than just incurring that risk? So as part of our due diligence, we went out and we said, well, given a facility this size, what other resources does council have where we could actually build this and get the same, if not a better result? There were a number of sites that we looked at, and we very quickly, though, screened it down to one that stood out, and that's the Privetson Drive site. There are other risks at the Onikawa site, such as liquefaction potential, which in fact is a risk over most of the Napier metropolitan area to some degree or other, unless you're living up on a hill. However, that risk is pretty much the same at Privetson and Onikawa, so that really isn't a factor in our decision or recommendation to consider Privetson as an alternate site. There are other associated risks with building a facility in a residential neighbourhood, such as the adjacent site uses, the proximity of schools, the pedestrian traffic at certain times of the day and the risk that represents. And we have to be cognizant of that as well. So at the end of the day, we end up looking at all of these different risk factors and we say, if we can do it somewhere else without having to take the risk of it costing more than we thought by uncovering things we didn't know about a site we haven't investigated, wouldn't we do that? And when it comes to it not making a difference to the end user experience for the dollars that you're going to spend remedying those types of issues that we have up here, why would you not consider Privetson Drive? So that's what we did. Okay, so that's how we ended up going from what was consulted in 2017, middle of the year, through to what's the right thing to do and propose to you in the LTP, along with another alternate scenario that keeps the facilities at Onikawa and makes the most of what's already there. Now, that's pretty much it from me. I'm going to hand over to Glenn.
Yeah, so just following on from what Mark was saying, it was around the same time that the Hawke's Bay Sports Park announced that they were building a 50-metre pool, and we had a discussion similar to what I was saying earlier to you around flexibility of water space and value for money, and we also, I think, had a recommendation from Sport New Zealand at that stage that in the vicinity that we were talking, we didn't need two 50-metre pools. So that's when we went out to the community through that long-term plan that Mark was talking about and gave you two options. One was Onikawa Park, an expanded facility there, and the other was a new build at Privetson Drive. So we went out to the community, and that's where every letterbox in the city got our consultation document that led us to those two options that we put in front of you. Moving forward, Glenn.
All right, thanks. And I know I promised to leave you plenty of time for questions, so I'll do this stuff pretty quickly. So these are just a summary of some of the questions which we're hearing out and about. So I'll bash through these relatively quickly. Recent strengthening work. Yes, there was recent strengthening work done on the Ivan Wilson component of the Napier Aquatic Centre. That was done just after I started, so that was towards the end of 2016. The reason that was done is that it was not earthquake safe. If we hadn't done that work then, it cost around about 300k, I think, we wouldn't have had a pool for the last 2 years. So to me, it was the right decision that was made at the time, irrespective of what's going on now. So Onikawa is the community sports hub, and to a degree it is, but it was more, I think, by accident than by planning. In addition to the netball courts that we've got on the site there, we've got the Omni Gym. We've also got an early childhood centre and a Plunkett centre. And if I had my time again, and the council had their time again, I'm sure with the Plunkett they might have put it in a different place to enable us to expand a little bit more. But there are site constraints, and there's not a hell of a lot of room left on that, given where everything is. So convenience to schools is another thing that's been raised, and to me it's a pro and a con. So absolutely, it's close to 3 schools at the moment. If we move to the Brebenton site, when we move to the Brebenton site, there are schools closer to there as well. So there's the Tamatea schools that are close to there. So with moving any facility, you're going to have winners and you're going to have losers. To me, it's relatively a net cost of benefit. The expressway risk is something that's been raised as well. I think that was based on assuming that access to the new facility would be off the expressway, which it isn't. That would not be a very smart idea with traffic going 100 km per hour past there. Access from there is off Tamatea Drive. It's planned to be off Tamatea Drive, which I think currently is a 70, but it's under consultation at the moment to change it to a 50k zone, which makes really good sense when you are putting a big facility there, which we're hoping to get 300,000 visitors per year there, so you'd want it to be safe in terms of traffic.
In Glen, there will also be good access routes in terms of public transport and our highways?
Yes, absolutely. You've stolen my thing.
Sorry.
So the last one is the Brebenton Drive location itself. So there's been some conversations around how far it is away from the current site. It's 3.5 kilometres. In your car, it's about 1.6 kilometres as the crow flies. So it's material for some people, but it's not as if we're moving it too far away. As Keith alluded to before, there's a really cool tool that Sport NZ have put out. It's called the Insights tool, and it's got all this data inside it from the census data, from health statistics, from all sorts of things. But the tool enables you to find any point on a map and draw a radius. So I was in the tool, drew a radius of 3 kilometres around both those sites. And the comparison of the people that live within those 3 kilometres was actually pretty damn close. I think it was about 41,000 for the new site and 45,000 for the existing site. And as Keith mentioned before, a lot of the future growth of Napier is out towards this side. So within the next few years, that figure's going to get closer and closer. I have had a conversation with the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, which have talked about, which look after our bus lines, as you probably know. They quite regularly review bus lines, and for significant changes to the layout of the city, of which this would be one, a brand new facility with 300,000 visitors per year, they'll be looking at bus lines when we get online. There is an existing bus route that goes along Westminster Avenue to the south of the site too, which is actually the same one that goes past down Tauranga Road, which is very close to the current site. So as Annette mentioned before, there's also really good highway access from there. There's tracks from I think 3 or 4 directions which seem to converge on that. So if you want to cycle to the new facility, you're well and truly catered for. Additional infrastructure can be considered as well. There is the issue of the expressway, and any decision there's pros and cons. Helping people cross the expressway in a safe manner if they are going to be walking or cycling is something to consider moving forward and consider through infrastructure solutions. But bearing in mind that walking and cycling is around about 8% of current users, so that was done in the Taradale feasibility study, so it's still a significant amount of people, and we do need to make sure that they're catered for and access to everyone to our new facility is safe and possible. Yes, that's right, 92% drive. Thanks for the point of clarification there. Now's Q&A time, and I know I've long promised this to you, so it's time for questions. But very, very quickly, Annette gave an introduction for our external experts that we've got to help answer the questions today, but I wouldn't mind them just giving a quick sort of 30-second snapshot bio for you, just so you understand who they are and what skills they bring to the table.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Byron Roth. I work for the Building Intelligence Group. We're an independent project management company. We deliver commercial projects, community projects all around the country and have done for 30 years. I'm an engineer by training and a specialist in project management delivery. We were involved in the risk assessment process back in February.
Good evening, Grant Watkins. I'm a director of Redevelopment in Wellington. I've got a few projects up in Hawke's Bay. I've been working at the hospital for a number of years now, and been a professional QS for 35 years, I think it is. I'm mainly in the commercial field and done a number of forms of my time, but mainly health and other facilities at the moment. But got a lot of data on health from other guys in our practice as well around the country. So we've got a few in the South Island at the moment, 2 or 3, and 2 in the North Island.
Hi there, I'm Graham Prophet. I'm a director of Paddle Animal Partners, PDP for short. We're environmental consultants. We work around the country. I look after the Wellington office. I'm a civil engineer by training, got a PhD in fluid mechanics. Started my career 38 years ago, initially working on investigations and construction of hydro projects around the country. Then joined PDP, opened the Wellington office 25 years ago. Been doing contaminated land, waste disposal, groundwater type things, general environmental things ever since. Apart from my university education, I'm what's called a certified environmental practitioner, contaminated site specialist, so that's an additional thing to say I'm moderately good at contaminated land investigation. So I've carried out hundreds of sites around the country, all sorts of different sites, different contaminants, different clients. I've had a special interest in developing contaminated land policy for the last nearly 20 years. I've helped central government develop regulations, guidelines, policy around that. So for my sins, if you come up against contaminated land regulation and it causes you a problem, well, that's partly my fault. Sorry. So I was PDP's project director for the Onakawa landfill investigations that were carried out 2009 through 2012, both for the City Council and the Regional Council. I've done a lot of other projects in the Hawke's Bay, and I've got a bit of a Hawke's Bay connection. My father was born here, went to Napier Aquatic, went through the earthquake. My grandparents were here, and I had a great-grandmother who lived on Wellesley Road.
Thank you, Jamie.
Good morning, everybody. Jamie Dowich from Sport New Zealand. I'm one of the lucky people to be able to combine their working career with their passion for aquatics, specifically swimming. Over the last 40 years, I'm currently the Spaces and Places Lead for Community Sport at Sport New Zealand. Sport New Zealand is a Crown agency tasked with promoting and championing greater physical activity amongst New Zealanders. Our involvement in this project has been to peer review the business case back in 2017. So I convened a panel of experts from the aquatic industry to consider the options and the business case around the project based on the principles of the National Facilities Framework. And we subsequently wrote a letter of support to Napier City Council supporting the option that they have considered and subsequently adopted. My expertise in this space, obviously managing and operating swimming pools. Prior to my 4 years at Sport New Zealand, I was 25 years at Wellington City Council, managing its network of 7 aquatic facilities, including commissioning and opening the Wellington Regional Aquatic Centre, which current capital value of around $310 million. Been involved in aquatic facilities, and I'm very happy to answer questions around this project and why we are supporting the option that's been chosen.
Cool, thank you everyone. So you can now have met, I suppose, the team of independents who have been advising councillors, and now is the time where I'll open it up to any questions from you. Obviously a bit of ground rules around that. If you could be succinct with your questions, it'd be lovely if everyone got an opportunity to ask the questions that they have burning, and also we'll be respectful in our questions. Also, just like to have the invitation that if you're not comfortable asking a question publicly, then all of the experts and our staff and our councillors will be here to talk to you after the meeting as well. So if it's something that you'd rather have a one-on-one with, there will be time for that after. So Councillor Graham Taylor is going to help me. If you have a question, if you'd like to raise your hand, I have first one over the back there.
I'll raise my voice, Councillor Taylor. So could I just ask that those are directional mics, if you could hold them and speak into the mics, then we'll hear everything you have to say, especially with our subject matter experts. The volume is fading in and out, so you need to speak directly into it.
Lovely, thank you. Tip from the back if we talk like this. Thank you.
Gold star.
Councillor Napier, Tiffany. All right, questions. Lady in the blue here, Graham.
Yes, I was...
Just, if we wouldn't mind just waiting for the mic just so everyone can hear you.
Hello, I'm Denise Marshall, and I'm a member of Napier Master Swimmers, Annette and the panel. Would there be provision for chlorine-free showers so that we could wash the chlorine off our bodies with clean, non-chlorinated water? And I have already phoned the council about this.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Is there someone who would like to answer?
Hey, thanks for your question. Not something we've thought about through this development. So potentially, I mean, it might be something that I can go away and get an answer for you. We haven't thought about it at all today. Whether or not it's a consideration is very much a design and build consideration. We're very early in the process in terms of we've got a concept, we've got a plan. Those sort of things will be shaken out as we go. Probably worth mentioning that throughout the design and build process we will be consulting with stakeholders such as the Napier Master Swimming Club and that sort of thing to ensure that what we are delivering meets the needs of each of our really important stakeholders. So, does that sort of answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. We'll have this gentleman first and then I'll have you, sir. Graham, is the, maybe use mine.
Yeah, hi guys. The amount of traffic down Napier Drive compared with Flanders, Whanikawa, I guess you've done the numbers.
So the question would be, have we compared, are we talking in terms of accessibility?
Well, now that there is a lot of traffic in Napier Drive, and if you're having 300,000 people crossing, you know, there's going to be a lot of people turning right.
Okay.
Yes, I can answer that. Yes, our traffic engineers have looked at the impacts of traffic flow on the intersection, in particular up at that end of Napier, and there is no traffic capacity problem. The turning directions and the location of where we're going to tie into Napier Drive itself will be carefully engineered to ensure that there's a well-protected traffic flow into the site from both directions and out again.
This is at peak times as well.
Everyone has to drive safely and according to the conditions.
Thank you. This gentleman here.
Yeah, hi. I'm speaking as an oldie and somebody who has been swimming for some years. Learned to swim at the Whanikawa pool, as did my children, and as far as I see it, there's a very good facility there. There's nothing wrong with the facility there at the moment. Why are we going to demolish it? When I first heard about the Pepperson Road pool, I assumed this was in addition to. And the processes which have gone on to get us to where we are now, to some extent have left a lot of us wondering how on earth we got here, and we've seen some of that. So in particular, what I would be looking at saying, okay, we need some more water space, and I think everybody who uses the swimming pool regularly, as a lot of us do, realise that, you know, in the afternoon we can't get in because the swimming clubs are there, and the swimming clubs are doing a great job, and that's great. But we've got lots of kids out there who need to learn to swim. We've got kids brought up in Onikawa and Rainewi and Napier South that can get to the pool on their own 2 feet. We've got kids around New Zealand drowning regularly every year because they're not learning to swim, and I think that's what we need to be addressing. So getting people into the pool, and the council says they're trying to do that. Why then do we need to spend 40 million on duplicating pretty much what we've already got, except that we've got a few new flash things, but we've already got a water slide, and we've already got, you know, all these other things. Yes, it's going to look flash and it's going to be like the QE2, but is that what we really need? What I reckon is that we've got this space where the old 50-metre outdoor pool used to be. You wouldn't need to actually do an awful lot of digging, and in fact you'd have to just remove the soil that was put there when that pool was closed. You could put a 25 or a 50-metre pool in there, leave the other pools running. You've still got lots of outdoor facilities and so on and so forth. It wouldn't cost 40 to 50 million, which looks like the current price. Maybe it might cost up to 20 million, I don't know. But how did we get here? You know, that's what I don't understand.
Okay, so I think the question the question in their team is around the lifespan of the current facilities, I think, and the expansion option that went out to consultation as part of the LTP, which is essentially what you're talking about. There was an expansion option as well. Would someone like to talk to the lifespan of the Ivan Wilson and the existing facilities? Cover that one off first.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks very much for your question. So you're absolutely correct. The current facility has got an old component of it, which is built in the 1950s or so well and truly obsolete, end of life. And it's got another component, the Ivan Wilson component, which is slightly newer. It's been 15 years or so, and it's probably, given the length of aquatic facilities, it's got a few more good years in it left. The state of the old pool particularly, and it is an end of life. The issues that we've got with the HVAC and with all the plant and machinery and that sort of thing, it really does need to be done away with and replaced with something better. So you did ask a question around, I think it was around the needs of the aquatic community and why we need that. So currently, it's been well documented through all of the strategic work that we've done that Napier is crying out for more aquatic space, and you're absolutely right. Between 3 and 7 every day at the moment, which is the peak time where we've got people that want to swim up and down, they want to do their health and fitness, they want to go and have aquatic fun, recreation. At the moment they can't, and it's a situation which we really need to address. Mark will probably talk a little bit more around the ins and outs of what we could potentially do on that site and the things that can prevent us from doing that. So, does that sort of answer some of your question?
I think that's possibly covered off the lifespan of the existing facilities, and the second part of that, partly, I think possibly not accepting that some of that plant equipment is at end of life. Is that?
That's just for one pool.
Yeah, that's right, for the older pool.
And you can replace it with equipment for a small amount of money, not 40 million, just 50 million.
Yeah, and then the second part of that is adding on to Onikawa. So I see your question down here, sir, and I'll note you as next. But Jamie, would you possibly be able to speak to, from a Sport New Zealand perspective, the integration of old facilities and new, which is potentially the second part of that question?
Certainly we've heard about the geotechnical risks of continuing to build on a landfill site. And I'm not a geotech engineer, nor a civil or a structural engineer. But our observations nationally are that where the integration of new facilities to existing old, outdated facilities, even if the old ones are replaced in situ, that the risk and cost profile increases by up to 25%. So as I understand it from the business case, the option of expanding on the Onikawa site came with a price premium of around 25% of the capital cost. I guess from a national point of view, you're looking at creating new history for the next 50 years. To build on an ad hoc, piece by piece. So as the new facilities continue to serve the needs, the older facilities will become less fit for purpose, less attractive in terms of providing a quality experience. You have a point in time now to create a fit for purpose facility that has the range of components that will meet the widest cross-section of the community's needs. If this was easy, I would still have black hair. Being all things to all people all the time is the hardest task that a facility manager and those that are planning and developing facilities are tasked with. These are high-cost, high-risk projects, and to mitigate the risk of combining new with old and potential for downstream implications and the cost associated with that, to mitigate that, the ability to start on a greenfield site and create a new future is the least risk option.
Thanks, Jamie. And I just wanted to add to that. The consultation that we did last year, we went out with those options of adding on to Ivan Wilson to a new build 25 metre and the new build 50 metre. Resoundingly, the feedback was around the Rolls-Royce version, basically. So the community told us very much that they wanted a brand new visionary facility. Okay, so that's a separate issue that we're going through. But the themes of the feedback was very much around do it once and do it right.
Excuse me, can I just say you're manipulating what we as a community wanted.
We'll come to you soon. If I could just answer that, because I'm one of your representatives. So, council received a petition recently from 7,000 ratepayers, and as a result of that, and you say, how did we get here? We don't understand. I asked for this meeting to be called because I think it's really important that the community come on the journey with us about the information that led us to why we're here. So this is the opportunity to understand how we've got here.
So my question then is, my voice is loud enough. My question then is, and you disrupted me, great.
If I could leave it with you, because I have a gentleman who's put his hand up a couple of times, and we'll come back to you.
Thank you. I hope I can get all this in order. In your little brochure here, I see that there is a frequently asked question that says, will the new site be cost effective? And the answer, bearing in mind that, as I understand it, this swimming pool complex is going to be some $40 million, the new one, the answer is construction estimates show that the build costs are at least 1.2 million less than Onikawa. That seems to indicate that the cost of redoing Onikawa site is going to be $41 million. That beggars belief, folks. Something is very wrong in what all these estimates are. And I would like to ask how on earth you reached 41 million in rectifying the Onikawa site when I think it could be done for a hell of a lot cheaper.
Thank you. So the question is around the costings, and I wonder if that's something for our quantity surveyor to go through.
When we're comparing the cost for a facility, which was the Privinson Drive, the facility that we're proposing to build was the Privinson Drive footprint, which is based on the QE2 specifications that we will adapt. That costs $1.2 million less to do at Privinson Drive than it does at Onikawa. If we were to build option 2 at Onikawa, it's $20 million. Okay, nothing's changed. That number is, and the $1.2 million that you're talking about there is made up of addressing those risks that we've already identified. $800,000 just to bury dirt at Omaranui landfill alone.
It just seems too coincidental, sorry.
Coincidental for what, sir?
It's just too coincidental you've sort of balanced the two figures out between Onikawa and the new site.
No, it's not coincidental at all. I mean, either you've got $800,000 worth of earth to remove from Onikawa,
But you would have to remove that earth from Princeton Drive.
no, there's no contaminated soil at
But you would still have to remove dirt.
No, we would not. We would have, there are other ways in which we can build at Princeton. As I mentioned, both sites have liquefaction potential, and both sites will require some form of piling.
So is the pool going to be above ground and not at ground level?
The pool will be based on foundations that are appropriate to either side.
So is that above ground pool or below or ground level?
If we were to build
If it
an
was
above...
at ground level, you will have to remove soil. And that will cost at Omaranui landfill.
No, it won't, because the soil at Princeton Drive is clean, it's not contaminated.
It will still
You
cost
spread
you.
it around and you can use it
It
for
will
filling around the
still
site.
cost you to remove it. You bring contractors in to dig it up.
I think what he's saying is the contaminated soil has the cost, the normal soil doesn't.
So you know how much contaminated soil has to be removed from Onikawa?
If we're removing contaminated soil from Onikawa, it's 6,000 cubic metres.
So you know that you've test drilled and done all your...
Sir, it's based on an estimate at this stage, based on the geotechnical investigation work done by Paddle Dallimore from 2009 through 2012. Additional investigation work is required.
They took the test.
Indeed, it's too coincidental though. So
Okay, so we have a question over the back here, Graham's coming over with your microphone. We can just speak into them clearly, please, guys.
Hi, I just had a question regarding your business case study. So that included all your consultants and engineers. I requested an official costing on that, and it was only $31,665 for that swimming pool, 43 million. When you did the aquarium business case study for 50 million, it was 700,000. So you're talking contaminated soil, all these engineers reports, traffic reports, all these other issues. How did you do that? You've got 3 panel here. How did you do that? Such a low figure. Have you got all the information you need for the right decision?
Thank you. So I think the question there, team, is how did our business case cost less than some other similar sized projects?
By half, over half.
By over half?
Oh no, way more.
Way more.
Way more, like 31,000 compared to 700,000.
I understand. And off the top of my head, I'd say that cost doesn't include staff costs. So for instance, Mark's time, Glenn's time.
That's the official response under the Official Information Act.
Absolutely. I suppose what I'm saying is staff don't form costs of independent business reports.
Sherry Ball, she does, that's his job.
Okay, I'm going to ask our Chief Executive, Wayne Jack, if he can answer the costing of the business case question.
Thanks, Annette. The business case that was done for the swimming pool was just done by one specialist company. When you're looking at the business case that's done for the aquarium, it includes a multiple of other agencies and groups which have to come in to do that. So the swimming pool one is just one company which is done to do that. But the other thing too is we have experts which have helped in the development of those information.
So yes, but that's not what she's told me. The preparation for the business case study for the aquatic swimming pool proposal was 31,600.
So would it be fair to clarify and say,
that doesn't make sense.
if I could just drill down on your question, Wayne, would it be fair to say that the aquatic business case was costed at 30,000 that you've just been given that figure, but there were a range of other reports gathered over various years that feed into that.
So as a result of the business case that was done, there's been the other experts which have come in. Can you all hear me?
No.
So since the business case was done, there have been other experts that have come in after that to help also provide further information. So you can't compare one cost
So when I
to
asked
a
for the
business case.
official response, they didn't give me all the details then.
No, we responded to your question.
Thank you. All right, we'll get through questions as well.
I guess in terms of clarification, if you're just talking about the business case that Wayne referred to, done by the Global Leisure Group in June 2017, only the business case alone, then I would suggest that 30,000 is probably the value of their Global Leisure. We work with Global Leisure Group all around the country. So to do a business case for an aquatic facility is generally between 35 and 50,000. The review of the business case done by Sport New Zealand was a cost to the taxpayer. So Sport New Zealand funds the peer reviews of significant capital projects.
Okay, thank you. I'll go gentleman here in the red shirt, Graham. May I have you, sir?
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Horrocks. I grew up in Lighthouse Road from the age of about 5 in 1955. My swimming pool was the municipal swimming pool on the parade, as well as Central School and intermediate. The swimming pool, the municipal pool, I understand as a young boy, was closed down when the council put the new facility in at Onikawa, and for many years, of course, there was no pool on the parade. That pool was put into the middle of the community. So I just want to sort of have that noted. Until recently, I was on the sales staff of Clark Products, a local company many of you know that sells, amongst other things, swimming pool chemicals. And my role was to travel around the lower North Island and the South Island. I've been to every municipal swimming pool between New Plymouth, Taupo and Gisborne as part of my role. It seems to me that this pool is ginormous for our community. We already have the facility on the parade, which I go there often and during the day is very empty. The gentleman from the sports and the aquatic centre who spoke earlier on would probably know all the same pools that I do. And it just seems to me to have the number of lanes, both the learners 7 and the other 10, to be a very, very big project for our community. Palmerston North has the Lido and the Friarbook to my knowledge, and that's a bigger community than this. So we have a facility, we've got spa bars on the front. I am all for, believe me, I'm all for wanting children to learn to swim. It's the best thing that we can get them to do. And sadly, many schools have closed down their swimming pools because of the HASNO rules and the OSH rules, we call them the old OSH rules, and not having staff prepared to actually look after and maintain the pools. It takes quite a lot of work. So I keep hearing about this Christchurch pool. Christchurch is a much bigger place. It's new, it's greenfield pool because of the earthquake, like Napier was in 31. I just think that this size of this facility and the amount of money that's been spent, which Colin mentioned earlier on, is huge. And I think that I would like to see a revisit of the present site in the community in which it was put and opened in 1966 to be looked at, because I don't believe that this pool will get the population that needs to support it. Thank you.
So I think what we'll do to cover up your question, sir, is we'll ask the team about our needs assessment, about whether or not this is an appropriate amount of swimming space, and we'll go from there. Who would be the right one to answer that? Glenn?
Okay, thanks for your question, Jeremy. So probably the first point of making sure that everybody's got clear, is Christchurch is obviously a huge place. It's got to hang a lot more people than what we do. The Kiwi2 Taiora pool, which has just been opened, plays its role in a network of facilities. They have got another 3 or 4 pools that are coming online over the next few years to regenerate what they've got down there. The Kiwi2 Taiora pool is built to cater to the needs of a local community, which coincidentally enough is around about 60,000. Our population is around about 62,000 and projected to grow over a certain amount of time. So according to that, we're comparing apples with apples with what we're providing. I've also done quite a bit of demand mapping in terms of what we currently have at the aquatic facility, and bearing in mind the current needs that we cannot meet because we're closed between 3 and 7 o'clock every day. So that's why some of the changes we've made to the Kiwi2 specs to add a couple of additional lanes to the Learn to Swim pool. That will cater for a swim school of around about 1,200 or so. We are just less than 1,000 at the moment, so there's a little bit of room for growth. And equally with the demand mapping of the users that we've currently got. And bearing in mind we're trying to keep at least 3 lanes for public swimming available at all times. And it meets it. So I guess your question is it too much pool? And then we've got other questions saying it's not enough pool. And that's the trick that we're trying to meet, because pools are hugely expensive to build and to operate. So trying to find the sweet spot in terms of, yes, that's enough pool without providing too much pool is the trick. I personally, with the work I've done, looking at Christchurch and looking at the demand mapping of what we currently got, are comfortable where it is. We've also built a provision going forward that if it's got to be enough pool, that there's the ability to extend it, to put either another brand new tank or to extend it to a 50-metre pool if demand should dictate as Napier grows and as our population changes and our need changes.
Well, it's much bigger than the top centre, isn't it? It'll be bigger than the top.
I'm not familiar with the top centre, sorry. Jamie, do you know the top centre?
Yes, it will be.
Yeah, it will.
Yep.
That's a similar population.
Yep. I guess I'll just add very quickly that if you look at the line that separates the 7 lanes from the 10 lanes, everything to the right of the 25 by 25 metre pool is catering for the needs of about 94% of the regular users of the facility. I think it's misleading to say that the learners pool will be used for lap swimming if the demand modelling that Glenn has alluded to for the demand and Learn to Swim and program use, that would be driving greater revenue and offsetting the subsidy to operate the pool. That's one of your main revenue generating streams. I would suggest that the 10 lanes is fit for purpose and fit for size. From experience, it enables you to have 6 lanes for structured lap swimming and 4 lanes for the public, 1 fast, 1 medium, 1 slow, and 1 for aqua jogging. Remembering this facility is the unique feature of this pool is it has a variable depth, so you will be able to have aquatic sporting opportunities for water polo, underwater hockey, canoe polo, a range of aquatic sports that are catered for in a skills-based development role rather than a competition and training role. So that is a very flexible 500 square metres of water space. And I think in answer to, is it too big for your community? I would suggest not. If there's a 50-metre pool built in Hastings, then you might be in a situation where you might have an oversupply. But it's better to be in that position than to have an undersupply 25 years from now.
Thank you, Jamie. Now I have a number of questions up here. We'll go Councillor Graham Taylor's Selwyn.
Selwyn Hawthorne. We've got so many unfinished projects around Napier. A lot of it's centred on water. We've got stormwater problems, we've got potable water problems. And I'm just wondering, when I look at this unfinished business, we've got a place on the parade, I call it the wall because it isn't a memorial yet. The council dilly-dallied on that. We've got a reservoir in Taradale that hasn't been finished for about 18 months. I don't think there's any water in it. Can't put water in it. I'm just wondering, do the council intend to put water in the aquatic centre when it's finished?
That answers it from I suppose, a governance perspective. The challenge of city governance is that there are always multiple balls in the air. There is, we would be irresponsible if we said we're spending nothing other than money on wastewater this year, stormwater. This is started in 2014 and will be an 8-year project by the time it's finished. So we must juggle all those balls, and there is significant funding in that same LTP to address, the stormwater, the water, dechlorinated water stations, all those sorts of things which are happening simultaneously. So I hear you, we as councillors, we have those same priorities. In fact, the three that you mentioned were the first 3 priorities in the LTP in terms of funding. So it's not one size fits all. Graham, I know you're over here, but I have a gentleman in the middle over here who's had his hand up for a long time. If I could get to him, and then I'll come back to you.
Yes, the name's Gary Neams. I actually live just off Pacific Avenue, so this is going to be very convenient for me when this complex is finished. But in your documentation here, you say, we've got 17 lanes of pools. But you do not state how many car parks you've got there. Nowhere, but nowhere do you state the number of car parks. Now I can envisage that they'll be parked up both sides of Napier Drive trying to get into the place, if it's as popular as what you say it is. And secondly, I'd like to know who is going to remove the overhead lines that currently lead into that piece of property. Thank you.
Lovely. I actually think I have the answer for those two here. So number one is that there will be double the amount of parking than what there is at Onikawa now. So we envision we'll be able to deal with all of the parking requirements on site. That was part of the information we received.
Give us a number, please.
A number. Do we have an exact number of parking, team?
No, there's no exact number of parking. There's no exact number. There will be about 200 car parks, which is about the number that is actually provided for the similar facility down at QE2. We will undertake our own assessment in terms of what the actual number was or is when we actually do the detailed design for the site.
Are you able to say about the overhead lines?
Oh, the overhead lines. The site is well clear of the overhead lines. They do not have to be undergrounded. If they were to be undergrounded or the community wanted to underground it, the cost, as I understand, would be about $2 million.
There's the map there, Mark, which has got the layout on the car park.
So I would be confident in terms of parking that you're not going to have parking down your street. I've seen the QE2 facility and it is expensive in terms of parking. All right, I have this lady has been waiting, and then I have you, sir. And
I'm passing my question over to David Kemper.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you. Some of you might know me. I started a petition to save the Onikawa pool, so that's my sort of slant on this whole meeting. Just a question to Sports New Zealand, James over there. In New Zealand there's an organisation called the New Zealand Recreation Association. Now they're made up of Water Safety New Zealand, ACC, Sports New Zealand and themselves as an organisation. Now they state in their document they've got a aquatic facilities guideline, which we're just going to ignore the ground issues at the moment, but their aquatic facility guidelines say selection of the appropriate site is critical and will be a significant factor in the success of the facility. Where possible, co-locate the existing infrastructure, including public transport, education, health, community services, existing local sports clubs, businesses and shops can contribute significantly to the success of the facility. Key considerations in the selection of the site are areas of demand, accessibility for pedestrians, cyclists, private vehicles, public transport, including those with disabilities, physical barriers such as rivers and major roads, and existing infrastructure. So the question,
industrial site on the other side of the motorway.
So my question to Sports New Zealand is, barring any soil contamination, or if the sites were equivalent, would you recommend to keep the site at its current facility based on the New Zealand Recreational Association's guidelines?
Given the risk and the cost premium on the existing site, Sport New Zealand's view is that building a new facility on the existing site would be problematic.
Well, that wasn't the question. It was if the sites were equal, were mitigated, they were both equal. No issues with the Onikawa site. Would you recommend keeping it as a community hub that it is, rather than shift it and destroy that facility?
The ability to meet all those requirements in any situation is always impossible. You can't tick every box for every site.
Onikawa is that actual facility. It does tick all those boxes. It's close to schools, it's close to shops, it's close to other sporting activities.
Yeah.
It's got all the infrastructure.
Yeah, aging infrastructure, cost premium to add to the site, cost premium for excavating the site. So that
we weren't talking about that. We're just saying if they were equal size, that's the question.
There was a lot of what ifs. The reality is that it's not a good site to build on. It's a great location, but it's not a great physical site. And the growth. Sorry, I need to finish because the growth projections for your city into the next 50 years need to account for the migration of the population to that part of the city's network. Accessibility, yes, it's on a major arterial route, so it's easy for people to get to. So accessibility tick.
So the guys from Ryanui over in where they are at the moment.
Yeah, we can't all have the facility around the corner from us, unfortunately. As Glenn said, there's winners and losers.
Can I ask you, have you been...
No, sorry, ma'am, I've got a number of people ahead of you, but you're welcome to pop your hand up again. Graham, I have a gentleman in the middle here in a blue shirt. You still have your question? You were next.
My question is that the people of Napier were asked what we want. The people of Napier were asked what our preferences were, and again, as we had with the velodrome, we are just given facts and figures. I think it's to bamboozle most of the people out here. Now, it's very nice to have all of these sporting facilities. You've got a new suburb, a lot of people built there, having none of this type of future thing put into their plan for what they wanted, questioned about it. So we end up with now a football outfit that's been put in here. Well, I want to know, what are you going to do about A, the traffic? You haven't answered that. B, light mitigation, and noise. Now, this facility, from what I can see, is going to have some horrendous multi-storey slide thing, lighting and noise. Now, is there going to be restraints at night for how long these things work for? Or do you just don't listen to the people who live in the area who have already said, we don't want a pool of this size? And the other thing, you said you looked at other areas. What areas have you looked at? We haven't heard. You said you assessed at least 2 other areas. What were they? And why didn't you use them?
Okay, so we've got 2 questions in there around sound,
light mitigation,
and light. And then we have a question around which alternative sites were assessed. So the first 2 around sound and light from the new facility, who would be the right one to answer that? Guys? Mark?
So, as far you're talking about the Prebenson site or the
Yes,
Onikawa
but
site?
I want to know other sites were considered and why we haven't heard why they were turned down.
Well, because they were screened out relatively
Why?
early.
What were
Because
the
they,
reasons?
well, there were the other sites that were considered when Prebenson was added to the mix. If you recall, everything was going to go to Onikawa up until the time we said, "Hey, wait a minute. Is this the right thing to do, paying the cost premium to put this facility at Onikawa and what other sites are available?"
I saw the drilling being done on that site at Prebenson before you even came out and asked the public what they wanted. You were already drilling, doing tests on that site.
The
So it was a
geotechnical,
fait accompli. You were going to do it in any case.
we were doing geotechnical investigations of that site at Prebenson.
Before the people had decided
And
that you would like
two
it.
other sites on the other side of Prebenson Drive,
Well, why aren't they being considered?
because they were unsuitable from a geotechnical perspective. On the other side, yeah. On the Lagoon Farm side, the further over you get, the further north you get up there, the finer grain the sediments get, and they get a lot
What
softer.
about Maraenui Park?
We did look at Maraenui Park.
What was wrong with it?
We looked at a number of other parks. They were all considered relative to those criteria out there. So there were six, I think, as I recall, about 6 different sites that were considered. And they included access, the existing utilisation of the facility, whether or not there are existing sports grounds or club rooms on it, compatibility with adjacent users, and accessibility. Some of those sites were actually out around the periphery of the city and were to the south and would have been hard to get to. So there were a number of sites considered. Sorry, about the sound and the light. Sorry about that. I don't have a specific answer to those other than the sound issue has been addressed by the design of the facility at Queen's at QE2. And so has the lighting. It is in a residential area.
And what have they got that protects sound?
I can't answer you, sir, because we haven't done the specifics of our design. We're just using that.
You're going to put something in a residential area, and then you're going to come to the people and say, we've fixed everything, we've sorted it out, we've committed ourselves to it, but also you're going to have trouble with sound, you're going to have trouble with light mitigation, you're going to have trouble with traffic.
No, there are standard guidelines for these types of things to be considered during the design phase, and there are noise impact contours that are generated from the facility, and light levels are assessed by the lighting designers during the design of the facility.
But do they satisfy the people who live there?
I guess that's a very good point, sir, and so it does raise a point regarding what type of information do you want to have or see during the design that would be helpful to you to know what the impact is going to be. We'll take that on board.
Thank you, and we'll make a note of that in terms of consultation for design. I'd also just point out that the district plan has guidelines for noise and light pollution inside residential zones, as the existing facility is. So it certainly wouldn't be an exceedance of those, but I take your point around what information you'd like to see. Graham, I've got a lady over here with a question, and then I've got the 2 ladies in the middle.
Hi, my name's Katie. My husband Nick. We've taken over New Road Onikawa 10 weeks ago. Hi, I'm Katie. My husband's Nick. We've taken over New Road Onikawa 8 weeks ago. One of the things that's really impressed me coming down here, and everyone said come to Napier, because it's all about the community, all about the kids, all about having a really, really good time with your family. What I've heard a lot today is all about the facilities and the cost, and I totally get it. No matter what you do, you can't win. What I haven't heard a lot about is the community and how the kids benefit. I've heard the schools are equal, but yet I see the deciles and they're not. And I'm really concerned that you're going to make a decision on a few $1 million that isn't about the community of Napier, from the water all the way through, and how all the kids can use this facility. You talk about 92% will drive. Well, that's the kids here that need to be here aren't here tonight, and they don't drive. We see them come into our facility all the time. We see them go past the facility. The cool thing in the Auckland Regional Council, kids under 16 get to go swimming. All we hear about now is they all get on iPads, they all do everything. It's not about the community, and I'm really concerned that it's absolutely must be about the kids in the future. How many Olympic champions in New Zealand do we see come from decile 1 to 3? And this is the opportunity to make it for them. Your circle of 2 kilometre radius, half of it won't be filled in. Yet Onikawa already has that. Yes, you have contamination issues, but it has to be about the community and what's best for the kids in the future and the surrounds, whether they can walk or bike, as long as they can access it. Because that motorway, to your point over there, is significant. Who wants to let their kids, at even 10 years of age, go across that motorway or under it? It's a long way. You have a beautiful, beautiful city. Keep the heart of it where it should be and spread your facilities out. Anderson Bay is outstanding, Anderson Park. But make Onikawa outstanding. Keep it in the community for everybody. decision site, is it done? Is this
Feels like a white.
It feels like it's been
The
done.
decision was made in June at the LTP after that consultation document went to everyone, and that feedback came back to council. So we debated all of the points that you're raising. And I just wonder if it would be helpful if anyone here is able to speak to it. One of the decision points that we were given as councillors when making this decision was around the spread of young families and of children and of the community, and the radiuses of access and things like that. That was all provided to us in our deliberations. And whilst they were really close, the new site under the latest census results were closer to young families. I think it's something like over 60% of our children live out in Taradale. I'm not Census New Zealand, I'm just telling you some of the information that was provided to councillors when making that decision. Is there anyone here who is more informed than me on the specifics of the census information that councillors were provided? Young families, Māori and Pacifica, and youth.
Basically, to go have to walk. They're the kids at risk. They're the kids you're not looking after. The local community in Onikawa that cannot go to 3.5K. And the other side of it as well, 6K away from the new facility that's now 3K away from Onikawa. They cannot get there. They are the kids that are at risk. You are neglecting the community.
To be fair, some of the information we had is that a lot of those at-risk communities, for instance, will walk currently 5 kilometres to get to the the Pandora Pond inflatables is my example I was about to present to you. That currently, if you walk down to that facility, you have a huge amount of people from that sort of lower socioeconomic area.
They can't swim in it though.
So why not build them a pool?
There is a pool.
Hey, so thanks very much for your question, and I understand absolutely where you're coming from. I mean, I see my job as manager of sports and recreation as getting more people doing more active stuff, irrespective of who they are, where they live, how old they are, how young they are. Sorry, that's the wrong way around, but you know what I mean. So I'm hugely passionate about that. I've got those stats that I briefly referred to before are up here now. So this is the 3 kilometre radius of both of the sites, and that shows you pretty clearly in terms of what the differences are. Well, I know it's pretty small, so let me go through that a little bit here. So we've got a total population of 46.5 around Onikawa. We've got a total population of 41,220 around Pepperson Drive. Bearing in mind that the city is spreading out that way, so over the next few years that figure will get a little bit bigger. Sorry, I can't hear anything up here, so I can't. Can I just get through this first, and then you can ask us some questions about it?
Well, it's relevant.
So, okay. We have a very broad, very comparable percentage of European, which obviously is a really high population of Napier. We've got Māori and Pacific, which are actually slightly higher, but basically same compared to both of them. The reason I picked the 3 kilometre radius is essentially it's walking distance. You know, it could have been 5, it could have been 4, it doesn't matter. But what we're looking at is it should have been 2, possibly.
Leisure facilities, so I did this week as well. It's supposed to be 2 kilometres. That's what kids will walk. Anything more than that, they don't walk.
Okay. I can rerun the figures relatively simply and get them through to you if you like. I don't know whether it's going to make a difference or not. That was the figure I chose to present to the councillors.
The question though, is it too late or is this done?
At the moment, the long-term plan is signed off. This is the option that's in the long-term plan.
Why does the council always sign off everything? Saying without really consulting
to the public.
Yeah, what's the point of being here?
So there's a question there around council decision making and engagement with the community. And this is something we've discussed a lot because we did get that petition and there is a lot of sort of questions in the community around it. And I suppose that's the frustrating thing about local government is people don't necessarily engage with you in the decision making at the right time in the process. So council sent to every letterbox a consultation document which had Onikawa or Prevenson Drive.
So that was sent to every
We were asked
residential
50
address.
25 metre pool, 25 metre pool, and they're told, oh, actually the 50 metres not an option anyway. Most of us have already voted on that, so why were we going to vote against?
That's right. So 50 metres was not an option for all those options you had. But we're building 50 metres worth of pool. It was just around how that be configured. It doesn't need to be, is what Sport New Zealand's telling us. So just getting back to your question around consultation, and I suppose that is the frustrating thing, is that we had, the community was split. 51 in support of the new site, 49 in support of the old site. And so your councillors were split as well. The community was split on the decision. But you can't say that we didn't ask, if you know what I mean. So every letterbox in the community received that consultation document. Whether you chose to engage or not is reflected in the decision. So I'll carry on with questions. I know you've had your hand up, but I did have a lady here. Graham's coming with your microphone. And then after that, Graham, I have the two ladies in the back who've had their hand up for a long time as well.
Fellow fish, all you fishy people, there's lots of you here. Hey, hi Morfits.
Sorry, could you just move over there? We can't see you.
I love 50 metres, so I'm really sad to hear you're not proceeding with 50. Because the reason these guys don't see me in the pool is that I hate turning. Not good at it. But we should have Olympian, no matter what social demographic. And this, if it was a 50-metre pool, it would obviously cover the whole of Hawke's Bay. No, not just Hastings. So am I hearing it's not 50?
Yeah, so just confirming that the regional sports park is building a 50-metre pool.
You know, that's not my major point, surname major. Sorry, it's Christmas. My point really was about accessibility and the new owners. Thank you for coming to our community, because I love your values already. We're coming to see you, my money. But I was at a Napier Pilot City Trust hui last night, and assessing their new direction. So it's up to them to describe what that's going to be. Kids, right? And reminding ourselves in New Zealand, we've got an embarrassing scenario globally around the deprivation index. And in New Zealand, Hawke's Bay features very highly. That includes Napier. So I'm just concurring with the people that have brought that issue up today around our deprivation indices. So of the population demographics, the newer suburbs presumably have one or two working parents versus other suburbs where sometimes people have worked for 4 generations. And personally I know more than one family where the grandparents are raising the grandchildren. You know, so I think you need to be very careful around placing this facility and who gets access it. The other side of it is age. 86-year-old mother who is very good at catching the buses, thank you. But like scooters, what about our population that's us in about 20 years? Look out. But you know, my main thing is accessibility. And I don't think a bus is going to do it. So perhaps you might have to reconsider the actual siting. I don't know. But those that are most deprived in New Zealand shouldn't be deprived further by this decision. And I have had 2 young nephews, probably grand-nephews, one drowned on the Marine Parade and another one at Ocean Beach, under 5 years of age. Not pretty. Okay, thank you.
Here. Graham, I have the 2 ladies in the back here. I think lady in red. Denise, you right if I take people with first time questions first? I do know you.
That's fair. Thank you. As a resident of Parklands and have been there for 7 years, when did anybody from the council consult us? Never. Never. It would have been nice to have had a talk with someone just telling us how are you supposed to get out of Pacific Avenue when the traffic's going flat out along Tamatea Drive into the swimming pool? And question number 2, what councillor's monument is this going to be?
So in response to when were you consulted, that was in
the letterbox.
That's right, so every letterbox received a briefing.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
But we as residents weren't spoken to.
I would love to speak to the 63,000 people in Napier personally. It's sometimes
a
public meeting.
Of retired people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You, sir.
Thank you. Paul Coe, I live in Flanders Ave. Can I ask our engineer over there, he was talking about the soil being contaminated, and it's not good to build or rebuild a Kawa pool. Can I ask, why is it that the council allows new homes to be built within that area?
Sure. So, like most things, I'm not going to try and bamboozle you because that's not my style. The issue is regarding contamination, and you can have contamination in soil. It's how you get exposed to it that matters. The levels of contamination in the soils around Onikawa are very low. You can grow vegetables in it. You can, there are some locations where there are higher heavy metals in the near surface soils, but generally in that whole area, it's covered by around about 100 millimetres to half a metre or more of what they call a capping material. So the risks for exposure under normal residential situations are low. In addition, normal construction practices for residential buildings result in a relatively short duration exposure. We're not, and as a result, it doesn't accumulate over time. Going out in the sun every day without your hat on, that's a good example of increasing your risk of an exposure that's going to have an adverse effect. When it comes to building a swimming pool and digging up soil that has that contamination in it, it's not only the risk of what you know is there, but uncovering some things that you don't know. We can go out there and drill holes that are about 100 millimetres in diameter and take soil samples and say we've characterised that waste and that material. And we'll have a reasonably good general feel for what it is. But when you go in there with a bulldozer, there are other rules and regulations which kick in, which mean we've got to take more rigorous measures to control the exposure that might happen when we're moving large quantities of soil. And that's what drives the cost up. Then in addition to that, we've got to put it somewhere else, and that adds further cost. My colleague from, consultant from Paddle Dalrymple might add more to add on that.
Can I just ask a question? Because my question is very much related to this, and I just wanted to switch.
This is a related question. A gentleman's had his hand up for a while, so if we can add that in the mix, and then we'll come back.
Look, I'm well aware of the reports that were done back in 2008 now, was it? And I wasn't aware of any bores actually done in the Onikawa pools at the time. They were certainly done around the area. So my question around what would be left at Onikawa once the pool is moved is how then are you going to deal with the contamination that you undoubtedly come across when you are demolishing the building? And also, given that you are going to look at it being a recreational area and some nice pictures in here, which are great, I still believe that there is some remedial action that's required in that site that still hasn't been done from the Paddle Dalmore report that suggested that the council needed to do that because the cap that you can see was 0.5 and 1 is actually less than that on the Onikawa Park. So what are the costings? 0.1. Yeah, so an unsafe level was identified on Onikawa Park in a number of those areas where the cap is insufficient. So my question, really, and I'm getting to it, is you factored into the assumption that it's $800,000 to remove the materials and take away. How much have you factored in for the remedial work as well as the new development of that site and also the demolishing the Onikawa pool?
Remediating the site in terms of adapting it to its new use in the future, which is as a reserve, and developing it further with additional play features, would include making sure that we had sufficient cover over the existing material, minimising any future disturbance of the existing cap itself. So the site would take that into consideration. Also during the demolition of the buildings, as is done for other, in fact, historic buildings that might contain asbestos, there are very specific control measures that are put into place to manage and mitigate the hazard of that demolition process.
Yeah,
so Mark, the question is the number.
How much has it cost? It's a cost to do it, because you've already done the $800,000 soil removal. So how much to do the remedial work as well?
Yes, my recollection, thanks, is there's $500,000 set aside in the plan for that.
For the removal?
For restoring the site after the demolition is done, yes.
So a $300,000 difference.
So just to answer that budget question, there's $500,000 to remediate the site, so that includes the demolition and getting it back to reserve land, and then there is $700,000 to do the play features. We're going to keep the water play creator free to use, family park, barbecues, that kind of thing. So $500,000 and $700,000 for those two purposes.
There's a difference of $300,000 difference between the decision to move the pool.
Including demolition though as well.
One figure, the $800,000 is to remove contaminated soil and dispose of it, and the other is to bring clean fill in and landscaping. Two different things.
Sorry, Councillor, you just said that was $700,000. And you've said it was $500,000.
Sorry, $500,000 is to return it to reserve. $700,000 is to develop all the play features, the barbecues,
So that's $1.2 million dollars you're going to spend on that.
Essentially the remedial work and to remove and to put it back to what it is safely.
That's correct. So you've got something to add?
Yeah, I don't really want to bamboozle you with the science, but in actual fact, when we did the investigation at the park, I don't really want to bamboozle you with the science, but when we did the investigation at the park, and it was only a few locations, but the concentrations of contaminants are not particularly high. They mostly complied with recreational guidelines, which is what you use for parks, but those recreational guidelines are actually based on kids playing something like rugby, or basically grovelling in the dirt as part of when they play their sport. Whereas the sort of recreation that would be typical on the park is just people walking, and there's virtually no risk from contaminants there. The risk comes from actually ingesting, and to ingest you've got to get dirty.
Graham, I have two ladies over here who are next.
Sarah Delaney. I'm a Parklands resident but grew up in Onikawa. I'm directly affected at the moment by the development of the Northern Sports Hub. So I haven't taken a huge amount of interest in this because we, as a group, neighbourhood support group, have taken a submission to the Commissioner about the change of the district plan for the swap over of the Northern Sports Hub. My question and observation of this is, personally, I think the council is building on an orphan site in that Parklands is not expanding in that direction. And if you think of nighttime security, that's a very exposed site. What my thoughts are, why wasn't a complex such as this included in the development of this whole park, which would have incorporated the Parklands community, the Taradale community, with this being the major sports hub. I think what you're building is in isolation to the rest of your facilities.
So a question there around if we investigated building on the current site that we're on here now at Park Island. Mark, would you like to speak to that?
Not really.
The Parkland Sports Hub had a certain arrangement of fields that had been developed in consultation, as I understand, with different parts of the sports community: hockey, soccer, rugby, the Hawke's Bay Rugby Union, Pirates. And so that plan had been consulted with everybody and essentially master planned. Then to accommodate some changes with the Parkland's residential layout, there were some additional modifications that were required to go out to district planning for a change there. But the option to include the aquatic facility in that sports hub was not considered. As part of that process, they were two separate processes, and that's the facts.
Thank you. Graham, I have another lady down here.
I'm just curious, I know you're looking at developing the Onikawa site as a recreation area, but we have a 15-year-old pool there that is actually quite accessible, quite useful, and I know my children are very privileged and lucky to be able to do swimming. Is there an option to leave that 15-metre pool there, that 15-year-old pool there, because it's got another 35 years possibly life in it, as well as your facility, because we do need more pool space, especially for all our children to learn to swim fit and lovely facilities, but it makes no sense to me to get rid of a pool that's actually accessible, even if you are going to get rid of the old one, because it is.
Hey, thank you very much for your question, and it is a really good one. When you look at it on the face of it, Ivan Wilson is still in a reasonable nick. So absolutely, we could build a brand new facility somewhere else to cater for the needs of the Napier community. Sorry, my holding is close enough to my mouth. The issue is when we come to operating aquatic facilities, they are hugely expensive to run, to heat, to maintain the climate. It costs us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to just run the current aquatic facility. So all of a sudden, just introducing a facility like the Ivan Wilson, along with a new facility, could be up to 2% on rates.
Could you look at a club, for example, a swim club taking over, like the Greendale pool?
And there are potential options to have a look at that. If we completely gave it to someone and said, hey, this is your asset, it would be really hard to see anyone making it economic because of the cost of actually operating it.
The money we put in now.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good question, and it's one we've talked about at council a lot. In terms of the time frame, I think the physical life of the pool is somewhere around 30 years. I think it's got 50 for depreciation or something like that in the plan, but the physical life of it before it needs major upgrades is about 30 years. We're talking about a project that would be sort of 18 months, maybe 2 years once you talk to builders to actually build the new pool, and we're a year away from that anyway, so you'll sort of be in the year 18, 19 of its life. We've had that discussion, and I think talked to David Kemper about that. Would the swim clubs be in a position where they might want to lease the facility? It's an option.
It is an option, it's not been completely.
It's an option if they came to us and that was something that they could. I think what Glenn's saying is it might be unaffordable. Off the top of my head, I think when we're talking about swimming pools, every swim is subsidised to the tune of about $40 if you were to pay the real cost of a swim in Napier. So whether or not they can carry that operational cost, obviously it would be less for lesser pool space. But yeah, really good question, thank you. Graham, I have this lady over here in the grey next, and then I see you in the blue.
My question has to do with the lanes, all right? So we see that we're going to have supposedly 17 lanes against the 11 that's there now. But somebody gave a throwaway comment that they didn't really think that the Learn to Swim pool 7 lanes was going to actually be available for laps. And so we're going from 11 lanes down to 10 lanes. Now, I understand from the Onikawa pool that it's closed for laps between 3 and 7. But if you're going from 11 lanes down to 10, and they are available between 3 and 7, what data do you have that says those people who want to swim will now be able to swim between 3 and 7? That's the first question. There was also another throwaway comment about the spa pools, okay, and saying that they were, that the lanes were empty most of the time. Well, that's not actually the case, and I'd be really interested to know what studies, what data you have on the amount that's being used by people on all the laps available in Napier. I know that I have to queue to get into the spa pools to do my laps in the morning, all right? And I know you've got to go in the morning because you can't go in the afternoon because they close them down or they're doing other things. And so this supposed 11 to 17 doesn't seem to me to be right. We're 11 lanes down to 10, and you may not be able to get a cross-section of the people who can't swim now being able to swim between 3 and 7. So data, studies, research, what's been done there?
Yeah, so the needs assessment, are you able to speak to that, Glenn, around the lane space?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So looking at the proposed QE2 based on QE2 development, so the Princeton Drive, it's made up of one 25 by 25 metre pool with 10 lanes in it, so you're absolutely correct with that. There is also another pool which is basically a multi-use pool, so it's possibly used for learn to swim, and it's also to be used for overspill for lane swimmers if the other one's busy. So it's broadly comparable to the depth of the old pool currently. So you wouldn't want to dive in it necessarily, especially if you dive a little bit deeper, but it's deep enough well and truly for adults to swim without touching the bottom. The difference will be the lane pool set around about 28 degrees, so it's a little bit cooler for people that are vigorously exercising, whereas the learn to swim pool will be a little bit warmer to make sure that it's fine for kids that are in there.
Numbers. I mean, the number of users, they've got 11 lanes now that are closed between 3 and 7. And the new pool is going to cost $40 million. It's really only 10 lanes.
Yeah. So the demand mapping that we've done included provision for 3 lanes for the public at all times. So that's how it's been done. If you'd like me to follow up, I don't have the spreadsheet with you, but if you'd like to see it, it's all available. There's nothing hidden. So it is what it is. And sorry, your question was around the spa pool. Was that ocean spa you're talking about?
Somebody said that the lanes were empty all the time, and I'm saying that that's not actually the case.
Oh, okay.
That there's quite a demand on them, because other people will say, why can't we use the spa lanes as well? But if you're saying there's only 7 lanes, I just can't see how $40 million is actually going to improve the facility for those that would like to be able to do laps.
So the answer is that there is in the demand mapping, and that spreadsheet has been presented to council, and I'd encourage you just to touch base with Glenn later so that you can see those details. But that there would always be 3 lanes available for walk-in swimmers, so you will be able to get a lane space that you cannot get now.
What about for walking?
So for walking, hydrotherapy pool is that space made specifically for that. Graham, I've got a lady in blue here, and then I have Denise in the back. We'll get your second question.
Thank you. My name's Jeanette Barker, and I've been in swimming for many, many years in Napier. My first question to throw something at you is what happened about the 50 metre option. I hear that's a bit expensive, but we haven't really discussed that tonight at all. The 50 metre option, as a gentleman from New Zealand Swimming said, well, not the 50 metre option, but going forward 50 years in Napier, we should have a 50 metre pool, because it can be divided into 2 25 metre pools. If you have a look at many around New Zealand, Kilburnie, Henderson, Hamilton even, it can be divided into 2 pools, which can be used for different areas. And I think that it's going backwards, not going forward, not getting a 50 metre pool. In 1909, we opened the first swimming pool in Napier, and it was 33 yards, that's longer than 25 metres. We're not going forward. And if you say that Napier is going to progress, then I think that a 50-metre pool is the option. And also talking about the learners pool being able to be used as a lap pool. Do you want to touch your finger on the bottom every time you go around? If you've got a depth for learners, having had a swim school, if you've got a depth for learners, it can't be used for lap swimming. And lots of other things I could say, but that'll do.
Thank you for your two questions. I'm really happy to talk to you about the 50 metre because I think from a decision maker's perspective it's really going to be valuable just to put in front of you the reasons why council decided not to go ahead with a 50 metre. So reason number one was the cost escalated from 38 to 54 in the process of costing that project, and it became unaffordable. So that was one. Second was we had reports from Sport New Zealand that we did not need a 50-metre pool. That was their recommendation. Thirdly, we had evidence from all around the country that ageing populations need warmer water and need flexibility of water space. So yes, you may be able to turn a 50-metre pool into two 25s. It probably wouldn't be 25 by 25, but two 25 length pools. You wouldn't be able to adjust temperatures differently in each, or bottoms differently in each. So it became a decision around, we want to build 50 metres worth of pool. How many people need to swim 50 metres in a row? And the answer that we came to as a council was that 10 minutes drive down the road for the 1-2% of people, possibly even less than that, that needed 50 metres in a row for competitive swimming, that drive to the sports park was acceptable. So we wanted to provide we want to provide the biggest bang for your buck in terms of different facilities that meet all of the community's needs. So that's the information around why a decision around 50 metres wasn't taken. I think the second question you have around the depth of the learners pool is something that would be good for Glenn to answer.
Yep. So there seems to be a little bit of confusion, I guess, around the shape of the learner swimming pool that we're proposed to put into the Predators and Drive development. So we are working through the specific design specs, but at the moment it's very, very comparable to the old pool. So the idea is to consolidate. At the moment we've got the little pool at the back of Flanders, we've got the other pool in the Open Wilson component, as well as the old pool which is used for learn to swim. All three of those are used for learn to swim at various times, and they've all got various depths to cater for the needs of various different kids. So we're working through exactly the specifications of how to cater for that. Ideally you want to consolidate into one pool without, to save the cost of building additional bodies of water. There are ways around actually providing the right depth for toddlers to swim. So we'll be looking at a 1.2 to 1.3 or so depth for that pool, which is exactly the same as the old pool, which is used by a hang lot of people to swim up and down, unless they've got very, very, very long arms, they'll be touching the bottom. The ways to cater for the smaller kids, they need about 80 centimetres of depth or so to be able to learn to swim safely. Things like plastic platforms which you can put in the pool. There are various ways of mitigating to making sure that one body of water is multi-use to cater for all the different needs of the various learn to swim kids without building tons and tons of different pools, which obviously comes at a cost premium.
Thank you, Glenn. I've got Denise in the back here, and then I think I'll take maybe two more questions after that, and then we'll be available for more questions.
Thank you, Annie. When the old pool at Onikawa was built, it was built to FEMA specifications that could hold a swimming meet for competitive swimming. When the council built the Ivan Wilson pool, the pool was contracted out to a contractor who had never built a pool before, and I attended a meeting at the council before it was built, and we were assured it would meet specifications, and sadly there were about 5 areas where it didn't meet specifications and alterations had to be made. Would the new pool be built to FEMA specifications so that swimming competitors it would meet them to hold a swimming competition.
Thank you.
Can
Really
I
good
just say
question.
that the actual QE2 Christchurch pool is not FINA specified, it's under survey, it's just
Yes, I was the national recorder for New Zealand Masters Swimming, so I do understand about the specifications.
So I'll give that a crack. It's a shame that Jamie had to leave because he'd be well and truly the expert on that sort of stuff. So I'll give you my layman's interpretation, and I will not try to go anywhere I don't know. So there might be a case, if you've got further questions, I'll be able to go away and get the information to provide it back to you. But so my understanding, and it comes back to the 50-metre question as well, is that 50-metre pools, by and large, for communities this size, are not being built anymore. And that's driven by a number of different things. One is that we're trying to balance the needs of a whole bunch of different aquatics users. So we've got the sport development area, the club swimming, that sort of thing, which is really, really important. But we've also got users such as the health and fitness users, the guys training for iron mouldy, the guys just coming in there for general health and fitness. Physical literacy is a fancy way of saying learning, so basically learn to swim and that sort of thing. And also leisure and play, which, as we know, is a really, really significant part of our population, and that's came through really strongly with the consultation that we've done. So the art is trying to meet all of these needs in a way that no one is really compromised. But if you look at the numbers of people, and as council, we are, and Nick will tell you this, we're charged with making the right decisions with scarce resources. We'd love to meet everyone's wish list, we'd love to, but it simply wouldn't be affordable for the people of Napier. So there does need to be compromises made in terms of how we configure the new pool. And if you look at the numbers of people, so sport development, we've got around about 816 competitive swimmers, and that's in Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. The Napier numbers I'm not 100% sure of, but obviously it's a subset of that. If you look at health and fitness, there's a huge group of people that will be swimming for that. They do not need a 50-metre pool. Physical literacy is well and truly catered for with the Learn to Swim. And the leisure and play area, which, really we're about bringing families down, we're about bringing kids down, enabling families to have an awesome time and to build water confidence and that sort of thing as well. Now, we can't do a 10 out of 10 for all four of those areas. It just wouldn't. You think $41 million is a lot of money, that would be a hang of a lot more than that. So, I also know a little bit about the FINA requirements, and in a way they are going like this. So they are getting more and more expensive to provide a pool which is compliant to how people need to swim to be competitive. And it's effectively pricing out a lot of communities that just can't afford to meet those. So we've got big debts. Jamie was telling me today that it's $2.5 million to provide just the various infrastructure around the pool to be compliant, to be able to time and all that sort of thing. So
So you're saying there will be no competitive swim meets in Napier?
The idea is that the regional sports park pool, which... Hang on, can you let me get this out? If you've got a follow-up question after what I've said, then please fire it at me, but just wait to get this out, okay? So it's very much aligned with the the Millennium Institute of Sport and Health in Auckland. And that is very much a high-performance focused facility. So that's where athletes go, they train, they get as good as they can, and it's a massive, basically a village of people that are striving towards high performance. And it's awesome. It's really, really cool. So the facility out there, to what we've been presented by Sir Graham and various people, is very much geared around that high-performance end of sport, that competitive end of sport. So his pool, even though it's still a couple of years away and we don't know the specific details of what's in there, is going to be very much geared around high performance. It's going to be very much geared around competitive swimming competitions and that sort of thing. So it would make no sense at all to have two of those pools, us to spend a whole bunch of money developing that, and then to have that pool pop up 2-3 years later. So that's the rationale for why we're going this way.
Okay, question.
So I think there's a follow-up question around timeframes of the 50-metre pool.
Okay.
And I'll just answer that. So Sir Graham Avery came and presented to Council at the same LGP hearing where we made the decision that we're here tonight to discuss. And he is going for resource consent, he said, in 2019, and plans to start building soon after, I suppose, once he receives resource consent. And he had a significant amount of that funding already set aside and received. So I'll take 2 more questions, Graham. I've got a lady at the front here. Graham's just coming with your microphone.
Hi, my question is, why are we having a gym built at a swimming facility? Where, if you look around Napier, and I have nothing to do with gyms, I don't go to a gym, but the gyms that are coming into Napier, another one starting in Carlisle Street next week, so we've got enough gyms, you're taking money away from local people who are trying to earn with putting something in the facility, a swimming facility, for the council to get money, which is, I know if you come back to us as ratepayers, but I just think we don't need it. I'd rather money you put into something more in our swimming facilities.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. So the question is, why build a gym as part of the complex? The business case that we were presented, you're right, shows that would offset the cost to swim users and ratepayers. So it came out as an option. Also, the Ocean Spa gym is the most popular gym in Napier because it has sort of that dual use. You can go to the gym and the pool. So not anecdotally, but the information that we have is that gyms and pools attract a different audience as well because they get to use both facilities. But it's a really good question around, are we making sure that that's not taking business away? And it is a conversation we're still having because that design's not finalised.
And the other thing is that when you have a meeting like this, can you just have one person speaking, not go back to them twice or 3 times, because there's quite a few people who would like to speak tonight, but they didn't get the option.
Thank you. I'll take one more question. Is there anyone, in taking your point, anyone who maybe hasn't asked a question yet that would like to? Lady at the back, our last question.
I'm just delighted that we've been invited to come here, but has it been worth our while coming here? Because it seems to me as though the council's made up their mind what they're going to do anyway. And I'd like to know if we've got a shot at this so that we can leave the pool in Onikawa. Is that working? Yep.
Yep. Thank you. I think it's a really good lead into how I want to So as your decision makers, we're faced with that balance of cost versus site, essentially, because of the issues at Onikawa. I'd be really interested now that you've heard tonight, I suppose, wasn't about consulting you whether or not you thought Prebenson Drive was the right choice. It was about giving you the information we had as to why we came to the decision we did. But I would be really interested, and I think the councillors in the room, there's a number of them, would be really interested in your view, if you were to fund a pool on Onikawa or fund a pool at Prebenson Drive. The cost difference, we're told, is somewhere around 1.5 million, and that's obviously unqualified because we haven't been investigating the Onikawa site today. Rates is 500,000 is 1% on rates. So I'd like a show of hands of everyone in the room who would tolerate 3% extra on rates to keep the exact same facilities as what we're proposing to build the Prebenson Drive at Onikawa. I'd be interested because that's what we... Beg your pardon? Question of clarification.
Can we trust that percentage figure? We
No.
quite often be told by the mayor there's going to be an X% on rates. It's the biggest threat to a ratepayer.
So you can trust the figure that 500,000 worth of our spending is 1% on your rate. You can trust that figure. Can you trust the figure that it will cost only 1.5 million to build on Onikawa? No, and that is the issue. We are given, until you get the bulldozers in, we don't know the cost. Because it's the contamination that is the main issue.
There's only a 5% difference between the two amounts.
No, the choice
And
is
it's
QE2
a very little error.
in Onikawa and QE2 in Prebenson. The choice is refurbishment of Onikawa versus QE2 in Prebenson. And so one's 2025 and the other one is 40. It's not a 1.5 difference. It's whether you're going to improve Onikawa and all that entails, not necessary to the QE2 model, or you build the QE2 as Prebenson. That's the real choice, I think, that people have been talking about tonight.
So
you would be essentially part of the exact same feedback we got in the LTP, 49% in favour of refurbishment of Onikawa and 51% in favour of the new site. That question you asked is exactly what was in the consultation document that went to every household. We know the community split.
400
Sorry, so you're 49-51, how many actually responded?
Just over, was it 400 or 600? Out of every household who got the document, that's right.
How many?
That's right.
I've got the figures here.
That'd be great.
Just over 600, 620.
Can you read that?
You had 7,000 sign the petition.
There's your answer. 707,000. There's your answer. You're on the wrong side of the equation. Yeah. You're on the wrong side of the equation.
Can you just read out those figures on the on that table, please?
Okay, so 314 submissions to move the pool to the Prevenson Drive site and 306 submissions to keep it at the Onikawa site. So like I said, split. I'm going to stick around if you would like to talk to me because there's a whole lot of colour around what you're saying and I'd love to talk to you about it. I'm going to stick around so it's all of the group here. I hope that it's appreciated that the meeting was held. Yeah.
7,000, what's the outcome now?
Go back to review. Overwhelming 21.
Yeah, just to cover off the point regarding the petition. So what we're required to do as a council is to receive the petition and then to consider it. One of the issues with the petition is that it didn't provide all the facts to people to make an informed decision. The information, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this here tonight.
So
we know for a fact there are people that were pressured to sign the petition based upon So the reason why we've done this tonight is to give you the information so that you have exactly the same information what the councillors have considered when they've arrived at their decision as to why they've gone for the option that they have and why they have gone for the site that they have chosen.
Can I say it's one of the signatories of that petition?
Yeah, so the other thing too to consider around the long-term plan consultation, that a number of people that voted for the second option to remain at the Onikawa site voted on the basis that they wanted the 50-metre pool at Onikawa. So there was a large number of people that were voting for the second option on the basis that they thought that that was going to give them a 50-metre pool. As we've said tonight, that is not an option. It's been supported by Sport New Zealand, it's supported by Swimming New Zealand, that we don't need to have a 50-metre pool here in Napier, as well as at the regional sports park.
But our community, if our community wants something, why can't we have it? It doesn't matter what Sport New Zealand is.
Yeah, and one of the things that Annette has covered off tonight is that at council you have to balance that up. So building a 50-metre pool for a small number of people that will use that on a limited basis each year comes at significant capital cost as well as an operating cost. A 50-metre pool costs about another $400,000 a year to operate. So that's an additional 1% on rates to be able to operate that. So we do have to balance it out in terms of the community's needs.
So why isn't this forum that we're having now been done before you actually went out for this consultation?
Yep, and that's going to wind us up.
You won't answer
the question, I'll answer your question.
Well,
so the question
Mr. Jack
was...
answer it. He was telling us that we're having to do this fait accompli. Mr. Jack, tell us why.
Yeah,
you didn't come to this a venue like this to discuss the situation, to get a viewpoint of what the people of Napier who are going to pay your rate for this facility
Yeah.
Why weren't you consulting us first?
We did consult you first, and as Annette said, we consulted you during the long-term plan consultation around the options.
Like that?
No, we had a long-term, we had meetings out there as well.
I don't recall a meeting about
The meetings were certainly promulgated to people come along. The reason why we're doing this is to inform you around the decision that council has made so that you're aware of the issues that council officers had to go through and consider and looking at all the options to present to council for council to make their decision. We are informing you in terms of how that decision has been made. And I guess one of the key things around this is that you are having to balance up, and I understand that change is difficult, but balancing it up in terms of what a community needs now and into the future. And this is what this facility is doing, is it's providing something which provides into the future.
No, it doesn't. It's not. It's only providing for now.
And if I could just further answer the question around consultation, because that's my job as a councillor too, to consult with my community. So every councillor did different things, so all I can tell you about is what I did. So Facebook, which you can't ignore these days, did the Facebook thing. Also did pop up and talked to probably a good couple hundred people at the Mariwa Shopping Centre, the Tamatea Pack and Save, and stood outside 9 to 10 on a Saturday, which was really, really busy as well. So there was a range of consultation things that happened, as well as the posting to everyone's mailbox. Just give some more context to that question around what did you do?
What about reconsidering now? We're getting feedback from your community saying that they've got concerns, so what about redevelopment? That's what we were asking. That's what we were asking you in the process, and that's what they're asking you to do.
What if
Sorry, so the question is, why not reconsider now? Well, that is not my decision. So I can't stand up here today and say yes or no. There are 13 councillors.
And how many voted on each side when it came to the decision?
It was split just like the community. It was 7-6.
Too close for a big decision.
Information to make a decision. You need to come back out to the community and say, okay, we've now clarified things in terms of what facilities we can put where, what they will cost, etc., etc. And then with a little bit more detail, perhaps now with the raised elevation of the subject, you'll get more than 300 for and 300 against, which isn't statistically significant. And you'll get a better buy-in of information and maybe a better return, which actually reflects what more of the community want.
Thank you, and I think that is exactly the conundrum that you have in local government. You can solve whether people engage or not. Sometimes they engage after the decision's made because they don't like it. That's just the reality. So thank you for your point, because I think it is heard, and there are a number of councillors in the room. And like I said, I can't make that decision.
300
Councillor, can I just ask a
7,000.
question? I think we touched on it before. The funding at the moment, the Ivan Wilson Centre, how much do the ratepayers subsidise that each year?
Around about 1.5 million.
Around 1.5 million.
Right, okay. Now, that would be on, and you would know how many people go in there during that period. Now, what is the projection for the number of people that are going into this very expensive facility, and what will we be subsidising that facility?
So is your question the operational costs of the new facility to compare against the operational?
Well, I'm not worried about the operational, I'm just talking about, well, that would be included, but I'm just talking about the subsidy at the moment for one pool that is there with probably a limited number of people. I don't use the facility. But looking at this new project and the number of people that are going to go in there, I mean, it's probably going to be more than 1.5.
Yeah, I think
and you're talking about $500,000 going before. So I'm just wondering, has the council worked out what our subsidy will be for the new facility?
Yeah, absolutely. Those operational
So how much
costs
is it?
have been worked through. What's the operational cost of the new facility?
Let me go into the
In the form of
great
subsidy,
detail.
not the proposal, because some of it will be
So there was a few questions in there. At the moment, the pool costs around about $1.5 million to operate per year, and that provides a visitation of around about 180,000 people per year. Now, looking at national benchmarks, that's well and truly under a visit per head of population rate, which will tell you any benchmark will say it's between 5 and 8 visits per head of population. So that would make us between 300,000 and someone tell me what 8 times 6 is, 48,000 people. So we're well and truly shy of what we should be doing for a community our size, and to me that's purely around, hey, we can't meet the needs of a big chunk of people because we're closed from 3 inches. So in terms of the ongoing operating costs of a new facility, that's one of the big advantages of a brand new purpose-built facility, in that, and particularly when we protect on the dry side. So there'll be lease income coming in from the cafe, there'll be income coming from the gym, presumably at the moment that's in the cost. So actually the operating costs are predicted to be, pure operating costs compared like with like, are going to be a little bit less, and the business model is a little bit less than what they are currently. So the complicating factor comes from depreciation, because obviously we've got a great big more expensive asset, so the depreciation comes in, which is a non-cash operating cost, as is potentially paying back the funding that we borrowed to contribute to the new facility.
Is the cost to get in?
Same.
Hasn't been set yet, but we have a number of vocal supporters of same or less entry fee on council, so representing that view. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to end it now. We've lost half of our congregation already, so we're going to stick around, all of us. If you still have questions, please come up and talk to us. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It was really good to hear all of your views and all your questions. Thank you. Well done,